Last week on Legally Kidnapped.
Good evening. Our top story this week. The Penn State sex abuse scandal has become the new national obsession, with Richard Wexler, the leader of the National Coalition of Child Welfare Reform, warning that the scandal is fueling parental paranoia, along with phony statistics and over-the-top warnings about child abuse. The scandal has fueled a major rise in child abuse hotline calls all across the state of Pennsylvania, as child advocates are calling for changes in the state's mandated reporting laws to prevent such an occurrence from ever happening again. The case has also prompted two California lawmakers to introduce bills designed to prevent such a scandal in their state. Child advocates in Georgia are saying that their state's mandatory reporting laws should cast a wider net to avoid such scandals from happening there. In Wisconsin, child advocates are pushing to extend the statute of limitations so that child sex abuse victims like those involved in the Penn State scandal can have more time to sue their abusers. Child advocates in Tennessee are upset because such cases would be difficult to prosecute, and the U.S. Senate is looking to make more federal laws requiring everybody to report every little thing, which will apparently not have any effect in Kentucky and Indiana, since everybody is already required to report every little thing there anyway. Also, conservatives are using the Penn State mess to advance their anti-gay agenda, including talk show host Rush Limbaugh, who is attacking the gay lobby over the scandal. And the gays are upset because they're getting blamed for the mess instead of those who actually committed the crimes. As for what's going on in the actual case, after two more come forward, Jerry Sandusky's accusers are planning to sue the Sandusky Foundation, seeking compensation for the abuse that they suffered while in his care. In Kentucky this week, lawmakers are asking questions of the state's child welfare system after a rash of child protection failures, including CPS agents failing to protect a young girl who was killed by her adopted brother. In Ohio, the state releases findings into an investigation into Trumbull County's children's services, recommending that the county install cameras in all of its visitation rooms after a child was raped by her parents during a supervised visit. And Governor Rick Snyder of Michigan signs a bill raising the state's foster care age to 21. Montana is going to make changes to their child welfare system following reports that CPS agents didn't act upon accusations that surfaced regarding a 2-year-old girl who was being abused. In Maine, child pornographers are walking the streets thanks to a backlog of computer crime cases at the state police's computer crimes lab. Pennsylvania child protective industry still lacks a computerized child welfare system network. And Colorado has a new children's ombudsman to handle issues with the state's child protective services. In Florida this week, the child protective industry makes a website to increase transparency by answering the questions that nobody cares about. In Ohio, a group of parents demonstrate against the family court system in the guardian ad litem, which is currently being investigated by the FBI. In Nebraska, Native Americans get together for a memorial march in honor of their children who have been stolen into foster care and adoption. And a new study published in the Journal of Pediatrics suggests that foster kids are being prescribed powerful antipsychotic medications as frequently as some of the most severely mentally disabled kids on Medicaid. The state of Hawaii terminates funding for programs that help to keep kids who are removed from their parents in kinship placements, such as with grandparents. In New Hampshire, the court says that the child protective industry owes $3.55 million to residential care providers. And New Hampshire also cuts the funding of the state's Children in Need of Services law, leaving out-of-control kids, truants, and runaways free to run the streets. The U.S. Congress is debating the issue of requiring insurance companies to provide free birth control with no copays. And a new report reveals that 1 in 5 U.S. children are at risk of going hungry. Presidential candidate Newt Gingrich says that child labor laws are stupid and that poor kids should get jobs as janitors cleaning their schools. Representative Michelle Bachmann says that if she wins the election, she would love to have foster kids in the White House. And in Indiana, the child protective industry tries to get everybody to wear blue in honor of sexually abused children on Black Friday. In New Zealand this week, a social worker is expected in for questioning in regards to accusations that he assaulted a 15-year-old boy at a police station. The government of Sweden apologizes to former foster kids who were mistreated while in their care. The Society for the Protection of the Rights of the Child is upset over Pakistan's lack of interest in protecting children. The U.S. government puts a block on adoptions from Cambodia and Guatemala, and in India, adoptive parents have a preference for little girls. In Canada, it is found that the Children's Aid Society doesn't like to return kids to their parents, and a Manitoba foster parent is is pissed because he has to pay $100 for a fingerprint screening as a part of his updated background check. In England this week, Wales is noting a large increase of children being placed on the Child Protection Register thanks to their overzealous CPS agents and their ongoing backlash over the baby P failure. And a couple of grandparents fail in their bid for an inquest into systematic social service failures that they believe was the cause of the death of their grandson. In entertainment news this week, rock star Gary Glitter is allowed to go abroad now since returning to England from Vietnam, where he was convicted of child sex offenses. And Justin Bieber takes a paternity test to prove that he is in fact not the first girl in the history of the world to be accused of being a father. A Washington, D.C. man is charged with running a Ponzi scheme after claiming to manage the money of and losing over $8 million that belonged to a child welfare agency. A trial date has been set for the Florida foster parent regarding the death of a 4-year-old foster child who disappeared back in 2000. And Russia is considering putting out an international arrest warrant after an American couple who adopted a Russian orphan only gets 4 years for manslaughter in what they're calling the brutal slaying of a Russian-born child. In Colorado, a 72-year-old woman is accused of helping her foster son elude capture on charges of kidnapping and child sex assault. A former teacher and CPS agent from Texas gets 90 years in jail for sexually assaulting a teenager. In Wisconsin, a state trooper is convicted of sexually assaulting a foster kid. In New York, 2 men are charged with raping a 15-year-old boy at a group home. A Michigan congressman stands accused of sexually abusing a young cousin more than 50 years ago. And a New York prosecutor is accusing the police of leaking a document in the sex abuse investigation of a Syracuse University assistant basketball coach, thus making it appear that all coaches will soon be viewed as a threat to children. In Detroit, Michigan, a young boy claims that he was sexually abused at school, and the mother claims that after she reported it, the school retaliated against her by ratting her out to the child protective industry. A woman who took off to Japan with the kid reaches a plea deal which includes returning the kid to Wisconsin. A family from Wisconsin is suing the Grant County District Attorney after she charged their 6-year-old boy with first-degree sexual assault for playing doctor with a 5-year-old girl. And the New York real parents who tried to rescue their 8 kids from the foster care system are released from jail after being sentenced to 60 days. A Texas mother who has done everything required of her is fighting to regain custody of her son from a foster mother who has fallen in love with and wants to adopt her child. The Texas judge who beat his daughter with a belt on YouTube is suspended while a state commission investigates the video. That same judge is still waiting on a ruling as to whether or not he can see his 10-year-old daughter. And a father of 4-year-old twins is claiming that his ex-girlfriend stole his sperm from used condoms and impregnated herself at a fertility clinic. In Ohio this week, CPS agents snatch an overweight 8-year-old after claiming that the mother wasn't doing enough to control his weight. A group of siblings from Arkansas gets to spend Thanksgiving in 2 separate foster homes. And finally tonight in Florida, an assistant principal at an elementary school calls CPS and the police to report a possible sex crime after 2 students shared an innocent kiss on the playground. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.